Well, good morning. I'm going to read a great book this morning. It's called It's Milking Time. This is a book by Phyllis Alsdorf, and I won't go into the illustrations. I'll show them to you. It's milking time. Okay, here we go. Every morning, every night, it's milking time. I slip under barbed wire and race down the lane fast. I'm late. Dad's waiting on me to start milking. Come, boss, I holler, come, boss. There, by a stand of poplars, a huddle of black and white starts to move. JJ, as usual, leads the Holstein parade. So there she is running down to meet her dad to milk, and there's the Holstein parade. Single file they come on the same worn path. Come, boss, it's milking time. Cuds a chewing, tails a swatting, hooves a pounding. Into the barnyard they trudge. Yeah. I close the gate and head to the barn where Dad piles grain in front of each stall. I scoop soybean meal on top and set up the milkers. Together we lay down a bed of fresh straw. Outside the cows bellow and snort. Ready, Dad says, and I open the barn door. Here's her dad shoveling that straw, and here comes the Holstein parade. Impatient and hungry, the cows heave themselves into the barn. Their hooves clack across the cement floor. We swat rumps to keep them moving to the same places every time. I lock each cow in her machine, in her stanchion. Dad washes off teats. A is for Alfie, always first to be hooked up to a milker. A leather strap across her back holds it in place. Every morning, every night, it's milking time. There you see her putting him in the stanchions, and there you see Dad milking. I lean against a dusty windowsill and see sunlight setting on a field of corn. Dad's arm rests on my shoulders. Sure could use some rain, he says. The air is hot, heavy. Overhead, a fan whirs, tails swishing. The cows chomp and chew their cud. Dad turns on the radio, low, so we can hear the weather report, or maybe the ball game. There she is with her dad looking out the window. Here's the old radio. I hear the slurp of suction. Alfie's done. Time for Bertha, I yell to Dad. Alfie, Bertha, Cassie, Di, an alphabet of cows to milk. Each time a milker fills, Dad empties it into a pail that he carries, arm outstretched for balance, to the milk house. See him carrying it to the milk house? See all the cats following him? Cascade of blue and white empties into the strainer and gurgles through to the milk can below. Dad pours some into a pitcher to take up to the house when milking time is done. Underfoot, cats lap up foamy spills. Every morning, every night, it's milking time. There they are pouring it out. That's the one they're going to take up to the house, and there are the cats. In a corner pen, a half dozen calves wobble awkwardly on legs spindly and weak. They bawl for attention and shove their bony heads between worn wooden slats as they muzzle for food. Feeding them is my job, something Dad lets me do all by myself. There they are, the newborns. I fill their trough with a pyramid of grain and unravel a bale of hay. Dad hands me a pail, heavy with milk for the calves. I climb into the pen, and a small calf with a triangle of white above his nose bumps against me. Looks like you've got yourself a friend, Dad laughs as he moves a milker to the next cow. The calf gives a baby moo. What do you want to name the little guy? There he is with his triangle of white. The calf nudges my leg and I wrap my arm around his neck. He looks up at me with liquid brown eyes. Buddy, I say, every morning, every night, it's milking time. And there she is with Buddy.
Hello, I'm Elaine Hopkins, Director of Programs and Services for the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library, which serves as the Library of Congress designated Minnesota Center for the Book. As such, we present programming for all ages that reaches across our state to celebrate reading, libraries, and Minnesota's literary legacy. We're so pleased to be a part of the Read Around the States program and to be able to welcome Phyllis Alsdorf, who's going to talk about her book, It's Milking Time, and her work as a writer. In addition to It's Milking Time, Phyllis is the author of Thanksgiving in the Woods and the forthcoming A Simple Christmas on the Farm. She's also a former college English and journalism professor. Phyllis, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
I just have to say that I loved It's Milking Time, and it's been added into the rotation for our bedtime reading in my household. So first off, thank you very much for the book.
You're welcome. I'm glad it's something that kids like.
Yeah. Would you tell us a little bit about the inspiration for the book and how it came to be?
Well, yes, I'd be happy to. I grew up on a dairy farm in southern Minnesota, and I think, you know, the book is pretty lyrical and kind of melodic in a way, poetic, it's been described as. And I've always had this image in my mind. It's milking time. Every morning, every night, it's milking time. Because if you live on a dairy farm, you know that you milk, you know, at regular intervals. Now milking often happens 3 or maybe 4 times a 24-hour cycle. So it's not always just morning and evening, but at least it's that much. And this was inspired by growing up on a dairy farm, going down the path to get the cows to bring them up for milking. And it's an earlier time of milking. Nowadays, technology has changed milking, but there's still that natural rhythm to it. And I think that was something that was kind of inbred in me, and that inspired me to write the book. And it was just something that was always lurking in the back of my mind. And then eventually it kind of, you know, came out. I was one of 7 kids on a dairy farm. And so my older brothers did more of the farm work, although I got involved with my sisters in baling hay and feeding animals and, you know, catching the sheep when they got out of the fold and all kinds of fun things. So growing up on a farm was a really important part of my, you know, inspiration for this particular book.
That's wonderful. So did you know that it was going to be a children's book? How did that aspect of the writing come about? Have you been always a writer?
Well, I actually probably have always been a writer, or I was a reader. I grew up, as I say, on a farm. We didn't have television. We didn't have modern technologies at that time. And so I did a lot of reading, loved to read, and always thought I would be a writer. And I think the first thing I submitted was when I was in about 3rd grade. I wrote a poem that I sent to a children's magazine, and I wrote it on a piece of cardboard that I found. And, you know, I had no idea what I was doing, but obviously the yearning for publication was there at a very early age. And when my children were young, I mean, they're now all grown, and I would write in the evening at times after they went to bed. I do some, and I was writing for children. I had trained as a journalist, and I'd worked in journalism, in magazine writing and editing primarily. I spent about 10 years editing magazines, and then did a lot of freelance work. But this was kind of something on the side. So there was kind of like 2 sides of me. And then I eventually went on to get a PhD in journalism and taught at the college level and did academic writing. but also continued to do some magazine work. And then when I was thinking about retirement, I kind of revived this interest in writing for kids. And I went back and started doing some more thinking and reading and attending conferences and, kind of pursuing that. So this is something I'm pretty devoted to during my retirement, although I'm also doing some other kinds of writing as well, some memoir, and I'm working on a children's middle grade novel. And, there's always something going on. So this was the beginning, though, the children's picture books.
That's fantastic. Thank you. You mentioned something, I think, when you were first talking about It's Milking Time, and you used the word rhythm and describing the language as very poetic. And I definitely resonated with that as I was reading it out loud to my daughter. And I was thinking about the structure that comes with farming life. And I I know nothing about farming life except through books like yours. But I was thinking that it seems to have its own really strong natural rhythms and the needs of everything on a farm. Do you ever find yourself missing that kind of rhythm and regularity?
I do. I mean, I think, it's deeply inbred in me. And we live on a couple acres in an urban area. And being in Minnesota is a great place if you have a heart and yearning for farming, because there's a lot of opportunities. But I do think what you're talking about in terms of that rhythm, that natural rhythm, that was something that I really wanted to connect with, because I think it's something that's comforting to children. I didn't necessarily overtly plan it, but I think that rhythm of almost a musical, poetic sense about the book resonates with kids, especially even young children who maybe some of the words might not understand everything, but they really get the sense that, it's something you do, you follow through on, you have work rhythms. And even, one aspect in the story, the cows follow a path. Like if you have been around dairy cows, they follow a path. They're creatures of habit. And so are we, and so the little girl and her dad follow the same worn path up to the house from the barn. And it's like a rhythm. You do things in the same way. And it's just kind of makes sense. It's human nature. But that was part of what I was going after, I guess, in this book, was to capture that. And it, in a world that sometimes seems out of control and frightening, there's something very comforting about natural rhythms. And I really love being close to nature and in the natural world. And you don't have to be a farmer to still get that, that thing. As bad as things are, springtime comes and new plants emerge. And obviously we're concerned about our world and changes that are frightening and permanent, but we also know that there's some rhythm that keeps going that we tune into. And I find that to be inspiring, and I think it's comforting to kids too.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I can definitely get that feeling from the book, and you pretty much answered my next question, which was going to be about how kids receive the book, like when you do school visits and things like that, because I imagine, or my question really is, I imagine you see students from a wide range of backgrounds in different areas, maybe more metro than necessarily rural. And so how, was wondering about how that experience of connecting with them over this story might be.
Well, kids are great, and they are so varied, and yet there's a commonality there as well. And they love animals. I mean, I'm generalizing here, but many children love animals. And in this book, there's a calf named Buddy, and that is something that kids identify with, and being able to put their arm around a calf and name it. And And those are wonderful things that happen on a farm too, but also there's so many other things they can pick up, things like, having work that you need to do and that you are an important part of keeping this system going, this enterprise, this farm, and living things depend on you. Creatures depend on you, cows depend on you, calves, and obviously you could go on and on with other farm animals as well. But I I think that there are certain universal themes that kids, no matter what their background is, can identify with, and that's definitely what you're going for as a writer. And just like I read to my grandchildren, and we read many stories about kids who live in high-rise apartments, and they don't live in a high-rise apartment or a heavily populated urban area, but they can identify with, there's several just wonderful award-winning books, and the action that the main character goes through, or the emotion that child is experiencing. And so you aim for something universal. And if that happens, that's wonderful. And I hope it does with this book.
Oh, I definitely think you succeeded there. Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Now that you're focused on writing and write children's books, have you found that Minnesota is a good place to be in terms of the children's book community?
Absolutely. I think Minnesota is just top notch. And I mean, there are so many gifted writers here, award-winning writers who are an inspiration. The Loft Literary Center is very active in terms of offering classes, and there are other places as well. I'm involved in writers' critique groups that with people I've met through the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. There are writers, weekly or monthly events that I have participated in. So there's a lot of inspiration that way. I think, though, for me, because so much of my writing is connected to what's going on in the natural world. Being in a place like Minnesota is a wonderful environment because I am connected to what's going on in the world around me, in the natural world. And I get to see it. I get to, watch it unfold. And so I think Minnesota is a great place. There's just intellectual vitality and so many creative people, lots of room for inspiration and challenge. And so I'm very grateful to be in Minnesota. And I'm a native Minnesotan, so I have that kind of ethnocentricity, I'm sure, about me. But I'm really appreciate all the natural assets around us. And, I lived in Los Angeles for several years, or Los Angeles County. And, there are wonderful places there. You can get inspired anywhere you are. But boy, you'd be hard pressed to find more lakes, more parks, state parks, events, things to get you outside, involved in the world around you. And I really find that inspiring.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your writing life or its milking time in particular?
Well, I think, let's see, one thing might be that life is long. I taught creative writing and journalism for many years, and I used to tell my students, life is long. You have many opportunities to do things, and don't give up on a dream, even if it seems like it takes a long time to get there. And my route to writing for children has been sort of long and circuitous, but it's been a happy discovery at a later time in my life. And I did do some children's book writing when I was much younger. It didn't come to, I didn't even try to get it published, but I was sowing important seeds. I was learning things. And I think sometimes people, there are people for whom, they just write something and it happens so instantaneously for them. but hang in there, even if it takes a long time. And maybe that's part of what I learned from growing up on a farm, is to plod along, to keep going, to not give up, and wait for the right season of life to come along. Also, I think I hold a slightly different view than maybe some. Fame and fortune is not what I'm after at all. I really love connecting with children and learning from them. And, maybe some, um, you know, fame or attention might come my way, but that's not the goal I'm after. And so the reward is really in finding out about, your children liking the book and connecting with it. That's so rewarding for me. And in fact, I'm kind of an introvert in a certain way, and I probably would shy away from something that pushed me too far outside of that arena. But I guess for young writers or people who are looking for um, ideas about how to proceed, I just say, listen to your heart, follow that dream, just keep working on it, and you'll be surprised what might come of it.
Well, I am so very glad that your path led you to creating It's Milking Time, and that you were able to be here today. It has been such a pleasure to talk with you, Phyllis. Thank you so much for this book and for spending time with us today.
Thank you. This has really been fun. Thanks so much.